Violet Chen stood before her bedroom mirror, her fingers trembling slightly as she smoothed down the emerald green dress she had borrowed from Chloe. The fabric hugged her curves in ways that made her feel both powerful and terrified. Tonight was supposed to be about her career, about networking at the annual tech industry charity gala. It was not supposed to be about proving anything to anyone, especially not to Brandon Walsh. Chloe appeared behind her, adjusting the delicate silver necklace around Violet's neck. Her best friend's reflection grinned with mischievous approval. "You look absolutely stunning. If Brandon sees you tonight, he's going to regret every stupid decision he ever made." Violet bit her lip. "This isn't about him. I'm going for the connections, remember. My design portfolio needs exposure." "Sure." Chloe winked. "And if he happens to see you looking like an absolute goddess, that's just a happy accident." The Riverside Grand Hotel blazed with golden light as Violet stepped through the entrance. Massive chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks above the marble floors. Men in sharp tuxedos and women in glittering gowns moved through the space like beautiful pieces on an elegant chessboard. Classical music floated through the air. Mixing with the gentle clink of champagne glasses and refined laughter, Violet's heart hammered against her ribs. She had never been to an event this grand. Her usual Friday nights involved pizza, design software, and Chloe complaining about her dating apps. This world of wealth and glamour felt like stepping onto a movie set where she didn't know her lines. "Breathe." Chloe squeezed her hand. "You belong here just as much as anyone else. Your talent is real, and people need to see it." They moved deeper into the ballroom, Chloe pointing out various industry executives and creative directors. Violet tried to focus, tried to remember the elevator pitch she had practiced 17 times in front of her bathroom mirror. But then the universe decided to test her resolve. Across the room, near the ice sculpture shaped like a swan, stood Brandon Walsh. He wore a charcoal suit that Violet recognized because she had helped him pick it out 8 months ago. His dark hair was styled perfectly, his smile bright and confident. As he laughed at something the woman beside him said. The woman wore a crimson dress that probably cost more than Violet's rent, her blonde hair cascading in perfect waves. The air left Violet's lungs in a rush. Her vision blurred at the edges. The beautiful ballroom suddenly felt like it was closing in on her, the walls pressing closer with each heartbeat. "Violet, don't." Chloe's voice cut through the panic. "Don't let him steal this moment from you." But it was too late. The memories crashed over her like a wave. Brandon's voice telling her she was too focused on her career, too boring, not ambitious enough. The way he had packed his things from her apartment without even looking at her. The Instagram post 3 weeks later, showing him with this same blonde woman, captioned with a heart emoji. Her clutch slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Several people nearby glanced over. Violet felt their eyes like spotlights, exposing every crack in her composure. "I need to leave." Her voice came out strangled. "I can't be here." "Violet, wait." But Violet was already moving. Her heels clicked frantically against the polished marble as she wove through clusters of glamorous strangers. The ballroom stretched endlessly before her, the exit impossibly far away. Behind her, she heard Brandon's voice calling her name. That familiar tone that used to make her heart flutter, but now just made her stomach twist. She pushed through a side door into a quieter hallway. The golden lights here were dimmer, the walls lined with expensive artwork that blurred as she rushed past. Her breathing came in short gasps. This was humiliating. She was a grown woman running away like a teenager who just got dumped at prom, then disaster struck. Her left heel caught on the carpet edge and snapped clean off. Violet stumbled, catching herself against the wall with both hands. Pain shot through her ankle. "No, no, no," she whispered, staring down at the broken shoe dangling from her foot. Brandon's footsteps echoed down the hallway. He was getting closer. Panic turned her blood to ice. She couldn't face him. Not like this. Not broken and vulnerable and obviously running away from him. She glanced around desperately. The hallway offered nowhere to hide. It's just smooth walls and closed doors and that terrible sound of approaching footsteps. Then she saw it. A door slightly ajar, revealing darkness beyond. Not a conference room or restroom, just some kind of storage space. Violet didn't think. She yanked the door open wider and slipped inside, pulling it closed behind her. Darkness swallowed her whole. She pressed her back against the door, one hand covering her mouth to muffle her ragged breathing. Her heart pounded so loudly, she was certain Brandon would hear it through the door. Then a voice spoke from the shadows. Smooth and deep and entirely unexpected. You know, when I chose this hiding spot, I thought I'd have it to myself. Violet's scream caught in her throat. She fumbled for her phone, the screen light illuminating the small space. In the sudden glow, she saw him. A man sat on an overturned crate, looking impossibly calm despite being discovered in a storage closet. He was tall even while sitting, with dark hair slightly disheveled and storm-gray eyes that seemed to catch and hold the light. His black suit was perfectly tailored, his white shirt open at the collar. He looked like he had just stepped out of a magazine advertisement for expensive watches or luxury cars. "Who are you?" Violet demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing in here?" He raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement playing at the corners of his mouth. "I could ask you the same question. Though based on the sound of those footsteps and your rather dramatic entrance, I'm guessing you're hiding from someone. I'm not hiding." Violet's protest sounded weak even to her own ears. "Right." He glanced pointedly at her broken heel. "You just casually stumbled into a dark closet during a gala." Outside, Brandon's voice called again. "Violet, I know you're out here. We should talk." Violet's entire body went rigid. The stranger noticed immediately. His expression shifted, something protective flickering across his features. "Ah, boyfriend." Something like that. He stood up, and Violet realized just how tall he was. In the small closet, he seemed to fill the entire space. He moved closer, his cologne a mix of cedar and something expensive she couldn't name. Listen carefully. He spoke quietly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "If you open that door right now, he'll see you immediately. You'll have to face him looking exactly like you're running away from him, which I'm guessing is not the impression you want to give." Violet stared at him. "How do you know that?" "Because I've been on both sides of this situation." His gray eyes held hers. "And trust me, the only way you win is by not playing the game he expects. So what do I do? You stay here. You catch your breath. You wait until he gives up and goes back to the party." His lips curved into a slight smile. "And you definitely don't let him see you like this." "Like what?" "Vulnerable. Beautiful. Running." The last word hung in the air between them. Violet's phone light flickered, the battery warning flashing. Before she could respond, the light died completely. Plunging them back into darkness, in the sudden blackness, she became hyper-aware of everything. His breathing, steady and calm. The warmth radiating from his body in the cramped space. The woody scent of his cologne mixing with the musty smell of storage supplies. Her own heartbeat no longer racing with panic, but with something else entirely. "I'm Nathaniel, by the way." His voice cut through the darkness. "Nathaniel Stone, Violet?" She paused. "Violet Chen." "Well, Violet Chen." He shifted and she heard fabric rustling. "Since we're going to be closet companions for a while, mind telling me what he did to make you run?" Outside, Brandon's footsteps finally began to fade. But Violet found herself no longer in a hurry for this strange encounter to end. The darkness pressed around them like a heavy blanket. Violet could hear her own breathing, still uneven from the panic that had driven her into this closet. Nathaniel remained perfectly still beside her, patient in a way that somehow made the cramped space feel less suffocating. "You don't have to tell me." His voice broke the silence gently. "We can just sit here in comfortable silence until the coast is clear." Violet surprised herself by laughing. A short, breathy sound. Is there such a thing as comfortable silence when you're hiding in a closet with a complete stranger? Fair point. She could hear the smile in his voice. Though technically we're not complete strangers anymore. We've been formally introduced. That puts us at least at acquaintance level. Acquaintances who happen to be hiding in the dark together, exactly. Some people go to coffee shops for their first meeting. We're just more creative. Despite everything, Violet felt herself relaxing. There was something disarming about him, something that made this absurd situation feel almost normal. She shifted her weight, wincing as her ankle throbbed from the earlier stumble. He was my boyfriend for 2 years. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Brandon, the guy out there? We lived together, made plans together. I thought we were building something real. What happened? Nathaniel's question held no judgment, just genuine curiosity. In the darkness, it felt easier to talk, like confessing to a shadow instead of a person. He said I was too focused on my career, that I spent too much time on my design work and not enough time on us. Violet's throat tightened. The ironic part is that I was working so hard because I wanted to build a stable future for us. I wanted to be successful enough that we could have the life we talked about, so he punished you for having ambition, I guess. She paused. 3 months ago, he moved out. Said he needed someone who understood what really mattered in life. 2 weeks later, he was dating someone else. Someone with a trust fund and unlimited free time. Nathaniel made a low sound of disgust. Let me guess. He's the type who talks about wanting an independent woman but actually wants someone who makes him feel needed. Violet blinked in the darkness. How did you know? Because I've met 1,000 versions of him in boardrooms. Men who say they want partners but actually want audiences. His tone carried an edge of bitterness. They want the appearance of supporting ambition without dealing with the reality of it. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Maybe I am. Nathaniel shifted, and Violet felt his shoulder brush against hers in the tight space. My last relationship ended because apparently being a CEO means you're married to your company first. You're a CEO? Violet's eyes widened uselessly in the dark. Don't sound so surprised. He sounded amused. Did you think I was just some eccentric billionaire who hides in closets for fun? I thought you might be a very well-dressed janitor with expensive taste. His laugh was genuine, warm, and unexpected. It filled the small space and made something flutter in Violet's chest. To answer your question, yes. I run Stone Industries. We do tech infrastructure and software development. His voice became more guarded, which is why I'm hiding in here instead of out there, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is what? Schmoozing with potential investors. Pretending to enjoy small talk with people who only care about quarterly returns. Avoiding Harrison Webb, who has cornered me at every industry event for the past 6 months. Trying to pitch a partnership that would basically hand him control of my company. So you're hiding from a business predator? And I'm hiding from an emotional one, sounds about right? She heard him move again, could almost picture him running a hand through his hair. Though if I'm being honest, I'm also hiding from the woman my mother keeps trying to set me up with. Apparently, at 32, I'm desperately behind schedule on providing heirs to the Stone fortune. Violet couldn't help but smile. Let me guess. She's perfectly acceptable, comes from the right family, and has absolutely no chemistry with you. You just described the last 4 women my mother has introduced me to. Nathaniel's voice held a note of resignation. I know she means well. She wants me to be happy. She just has a very specific definition of what that should look like. Parents usually do. What about yours? Do they approve of your design career? Violet felt her chest tighten. My mom passed away when I was 19. Cancer. My dad remarried 2 years later and moved to Seattle. We talk maybe twice a year. I'm sorry. Nathaniel's voice softened. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. She swallowed hard. My mom was the one who encouraged me to pursue art and design. My dad wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, something practical, after she died. I felt like I had to follow her dream for both of us. That's a heavy burden to carry. Sometimes, but it's also the thing that keeps me going when everything else feels impossible. Violet paused, surprised at how easy it was to talk to him. When Brandon left, part of me wondered if he was right. If I was choosing work over relationships, over real life, and now I'm hiding in a closet, so clearly I'm making excellent life choices. Nathaniel laughed again, and Violet found herself smiling in response. The sound of footsteps passed by the door, and they both fell silent, holding their breath. The footsteps faded, and Nathaniel spoke again. It's quieter this time. For what it's worth, I think choosing your passion over someone who doesn't support it is the right choice. Even if it hurts? Is that why you're still single? Because you chose your company? Partially, he sighed. Mostly because I haven't met someone who sees me instead of my bank account. Do you know how exhausting it is to wonder if someone likes you or likes what you can provide? Violet thought about Brandon, about how he had loved her when she was struggling, but left when she started succeeding. I think I understand that more than you'd expect. They sat in silence for a moment. But it felt different now, companionable, like two people who had found unexpected common ground in the most unlikely of places. Can I ask you something? Nathaniel's voice was careful. Why did you come tonight if you knew he might be here? I didn't know for sure, and even if I did, I couldn't let him take this opportunity from me. Violet's hands clenched in her lap. I've been trying to get noticed by creative directors for months. This gala has half the industry's decision makers in one room. I couldn't miss it just because my ex might show up. That takes courage. Or stupidity. I'm still deciding which courage. Nathaniel's tone left no room for argument. Stupidity would be letting him dictate your choices. You came here for yourself, for your career. That's brave. Violet felt warmth spread through her chest. When was the last time someone had called her brave? Brandon had called her obsessive, distant, cold. Her father called her impractical. Chloe called her talented, but too afraid to push for what she deserved. Thank you, she whispered. For saying that? For not thinking I'm ridiculous for hiding in here. We're both hiding. That makes us either both ridiculous or both smart enough to know when to retreat and regroup. Which do you think we are? I think we're two people who got tired of playing roles we didn't audition for. Violet absorbed that, turning the words over in her mind. He was right. She'd been playing the role of the heartbroken ex, the struggling artist, the woman who wasn't quite enough. And she was exhausted from it. What role are you tired of playing? She asked. The untouchable CEO. The eligible bachelor. The man who has everything figured out? Nathaniel's voice dropped lower. The truth is, I'm as lost as anyone else. I just hide it better behind expensive suits and corporate strategy. You're doing a pretty good job of it. Even hiding in a closet, you seem completely in control. That's just practice. Inside, I'm wondering if I'm making the right choices. If building this empire is worth the loneliness. If I'll end up like my father, successful and bitter, surrounded by employees but not friends. The vulnerability in his voice struck something deep in Violet's chest. Here was a man who probably had more money than she could imagine, more power than most people would ever experience. And he sounded just as uncertain about life as she felt. I don't think you will, she said softly. Your father probably wouldn't hide in a closet to avoid uncomfortable situations. He'd power through them. True, Nathaniel chuckled. He'd call this cowardly. I call it strategic. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from a fight that doesn't serve you. I like that philosophy. Me too. Though I should probably work on my execution. Running away with broken heels isn't exactly graceful, but it led you here. To this moment. Would you really change that? Violet opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. Would she? Yes, this was embarrassing and strange. But talking to Nathaniel felt like the first real conversation she'd had in months. There was no performance, no trying to be someone she wasn't. Just honesty in the dark. No, she admitted. I wouldn't change it. Good, because I wouldn't either. The air between them shifted, charged with something Violet couldn't quite name. Her phone buzzed in her hand, startling them both. She glanced at the screen, squinting at the brightness. It's Chloe. She's asking where I am. Are you going to tell her you're hiding in a closet with a strange man? I think I'll leave that part out. She texted back quickly, assuring Chloe she was fine and just needed some air. When she looked up, she realized she could see Nathaniel's outline in the faint glow from her screen. His eyes met hers, and something in her stomach flipped. The coast should be clear by now, he said quietly. Your ex has probably given up and gone back to the party. Probably neither of them moved. We should go back out there. Nathaniel continued, but he didn't sound convinced. We should still. They remained sitting side by side in the dark closet. Neither willing to break whatever spell had woven itself around them. Violet's phone screen dimmed, casting them back into shadows. The closet felt smaller now, intimate in a way that made her hyper-aware of every breath, every slight movement. Nathaniel cleared his throat softly. We really should get back out there. Before someone discovers us and gets the wrong idea, or the right idea. Violet's eyes widened at her own words. I mean, not that there's a right idea, because there's nothing happening. We're just two people who happen to hide in the same closet at the same time, Violet. Yes. You're rambling, I know. She pressed her hands to her warm cheeks. I do that when I'm nervous? What are you nervous about? Nathaniel stood up, extending his hand down to her. Even in the darkness, she could sense the gesture. She reached out, her fingers finding his, and he pulled her gently to her feet. The movement brought them close, almost chest to chest in the confined space. Everything, she whispered honestly. Going back out there. Facing Brandon. Explaining where I've been. Walking on a broken heel. And me? His voice was low, intimate. Are you nervous about me? Violet's breath caught. Yes, but not in a bad way. Good, because I'm nervous about you too. Before she could process what that meant, he reached past her and slowly opened the closet door. Light from the hallway spilled in, making them both blink. Nathaniel stepped out first, glancing both ways down the corridor before offering her his hand again. Coast is clear. He smiled, and in the light, Violet could fully appreciate how devastatingly handsome he was. Sharp features softened by genuine warmth. Eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed walls. She took his hand and stepped out, wobbling immediately on her broken heel. Nathaniel's arm went around her waist, steadying her. Easy. We can't have you falling after such a successful hiding mission. This is so embarrassing. Violet groaned, looking down at her ruined shoe. Wait here. Nathaniel guided her to lean against the wall. I'll be right back. Where are you going? He just winked and disappeared around the corner. Violet stood there, confused and oddly charmed. 2 minutes later, he returned carrying a pair of elegant silver flats. How did you? She stared at the shoes. I told one of the hotel coordinators that my companion had a wardrobe emergency. These are from the Lost and Found. They look about your size. You didn't have to do that, I know. Nathaniel knelt down, and Violet's heart nearly stopped. He gently removed her broken heels and slipped the flats onto her feet, his fingers warm against her ankles. The gesture felt impossibly romantic, like something from the movies she pretended not to watch. Perfect fit. He stood up, his hand lingering on hers. Cinderella in reverse. Does that make you the prince? I think it makes me the guy who's trying very hard to convince you to come back to the gala with me. Violet bit her lip. I don't know. Brandon is still out there, so let him be. Nathaniel's thumb traced gentle circles on her hand. You said you came here for your career, for the opportunity. Don't let him steal that from you. Come back with me. If he approaches, I'll handle it. Why would you do that? We just met because... He stepped closer, his other hand coming up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Sometimes you meet someone, and you just know you don't want the conversation to end. And our conversation doesn't have to end unless you want it to. Violet looked up into his storm gray eyes and made a decision. She didn't want it to end either, okay? She squeezed his hand. Let's go back. They walked back to the ballroom together, Violet's hand still wrapped in Nathaniel's. When they stepped through the grand entrance, several heads turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Violet caught sight of Chloe across the room, her best friend's jaw practically hitting the floor. Who is that? Chloe mouthed, gesturing frantically at Nathaniel. Violet just smiled. Nathaniel led her to a quieter corner of the ballroom, near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. The orchestra was playing something slow and romantic. Would you like to dance? He asked. I'm not very good. Neither am I, but I think we can figure it out together. He pulled her gently onto the dance floor, one hand settling on her waist, the other still holding hers. They swayed together, and Violet found herself relaxing into the movement. This close, she could see the gold flecks in his gray eyes, a slight stubble along his jaw. The way he looked at her like she was the only person in the room. "Tell me something true," Nathaniel said softly. "Something you don't tell most people." Violet thought for a moment. "I'm terrified that I'm not talented enough. That I'm just fooling myself about being a designer. So when one day everyone will realize I'm a fraud." "You're not a fraud." The certainty in his voice surprised her. "I can see it in the way you talk about your work. That kind of passion can't be faked. What about you? Tell me something true." "I'm terrified of ending up alone," he admitted, his voice barely above the music. "That I'll build this massive company and have everything except the one thing that actually matters. Someone to share it with. You won't end up alone." "How do you know?" "Because you're here, dancing with me instead of hiding in a closet." "That's a start." He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Best start I've had in years." They danced through to more songs, talking quietly about everything and nothing. Nathaniel told her about his childhood, growing up with impossible expectations. Violet shared stories about learning design from YouTube tutorials and free online courses. They discovered they both hated coffee, but pretended to like it in professional settings. They both loved old movies and thought modern action films were too loud. "This is nice," Violet said, resting her head against his shoulder. "Unexpected, but nice. The best things usually are." Then a familiar voice shattered the moment. "Violet." She stiffened, pulling back slightly. Brandon stood a few feet away, the blonde woman from earlier clinging to his arm. Up close, Violet could see the surprise in his eyes. The way he looked between her and Nathaniel. With obvious confusion, "Brandon." She kept her voice steady. "I've been looking for you." He stepped closer, his date looking annoyed. "We need to talk." "No, we really don't." Violet felt Nathaniel's hand tighten supportively on her waist. "Come on, don't be childish." Brandon's tone turned condescending, the one he used to use when he thought she was being unreasonable. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." She said no. Nathaniel's voice was quiet, but carried an unmistakable authority. "I suggest you respect that." Brandon's eyes narrowed as he finally focused on Nathaniel. "And who are you exactly?" "I'm the person she's choosing to spend her evening with." Nathaniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we were dancing." "Violet, seriously?" Brandon ignored Nathaniel completely. "You're going to throw away 2 years over one argument?" "I made a mistake." "Rebecca means nothing," the blonde woman gasped. "Excuse me, I mean..." Brandon fumbled. "That's not what I meant." But Violet wasn't listening anymore. She was looking at this man who had occupied so much of her thoughts, so much of her heartache, and feeling absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a vast sense of relief. "Brandon," she interrupted his stammering. "You were right about one thing. I was too focused on my career. But not because I didn't care about us. Because I cared too much about becoming someone you could be proud of. Someone worthy of you, Violet. That's not... I. Not finished." Her voice was calm, clear. "I spent 2 years trying to be enough for you. Trying to balance my dreams with your expectations. And you know what I realized tonight?" "What?" "I was already enough. I just needed to find someone who could see that." She turned to Nathaniel, who was watching her with something that looked like admiration. He smiled, understanding flickering in his eyes. "Ready to go?" he asked softly. "Absolutely." They walked away together, leaving Brandon standing speechless in the middle of the ballroom. Violet could feel eyes watching them, whispers following in their wake. But for the first time in months, she didn't care what people thought. Chloe intercepted them near the entrance, her eyes wild with curiosity and approval. "Okay, I need the full story," she stage whispered. "Who is this man and where have you been hiding him?" "Nathaniel Stone." He extended his hand with practiced charm. "And technically, she's the one who found me." "In a closet." Chloe's eyebrows shot up. "I'm sorry, what?" "Long story." Violet laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. "I'll tell you everything later, you better." Chloe hugged her tightly. I'm proud of you. That thing you said to Brandon was perfect. After Chloe left to mingle, Nathaniel led Violet out to the hotel's terrace. The night air was cool and fresh, the city lights twinkling below them like earthbound stars. They stood at the railing, his jacket draped over her shoulders. Thank you, Violet said quietly. For tonight? For the closet conversation, the shoes, the dancing. For helping me stand up to him. You did that yourself. I just provided moral support. Still, she turned to face him. This has been the strangest, most wonderful night. It doesn't have to end. Nathaniel pulled out his phone. Give me your number. Let me take you to dinner. A real date, where neither of us is hiding from anyone. Violet smiled, her heart fluttering with possibility. What if the conversation gets boring without the drama of an ex-boyfriend and a corporate predator? Then we'll just have to create new adventures. He grinned. I'm sure we can find other closets to hide in together. She laughed, entering her number into his phone. You know, when I left my apartment tonight, I was dreading this whole event. Now I can't imagine how the evening could have gone any better. Nathaniel cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. Sometimes the universe pushes us exactly where we need to be. Even if we think we're running away, maybe I was running toward something instead. Toward you. Maybe we both were. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. But Violet didn't want to pull away. She rose on her tiptoes, meeting him halfway. The kiss was soft, sweet, full of promise and possibility. When they broke apart, both were smiling. So, Nathaniel murmured, his forehead resting against hers. Same time next week? Different closet? Violet laughed, the sound bright and free. How about we try a restaurant instead? Novel concept, I know. Adventurous. I like it. They stood together under the stars. Two people who had been hiding from their pasts and stumbled into each other's futures. Around them, the gala continued, but they were in their own world now. A world where broken heels led to unexpected conversations, where vulnerability felt like strength, and where sometimes the best thing you could do was stop running and start living. Violet Chen had come to the gala to support her career and prove she had moved on. She left with something far better. A connection that felt real, a confidence she had been missing, and the phone number of a man who saw her not as too much or too little, but as exactly enough as Nathaniel called a car to take her home. Promising to text her before she even arrived, Violet realized something important. The universe hadn't been pushing her tonight. It had been guiding her. Sometimes you had to hide from your past to discover your future. And sometimes that future was waiting for you in the last place you expected to find it, in a closet. In the dark with a stranger who somehow felt like coming home. The end.